welcome to Merle's Guitar World. Classical music notation is universal, but not necessarily the best alternative for reading and writing guitar music for the average player. In this two-part series, I explain how to read guitar tablature. Tablature notation, or tab as it's often called, is a method of documenting musical passages for guitar and bass. It lacks some of the ingredients of classical music notation, but it's a great alternative for the average player with no music background and is much simpler to read. One of the drawbacks of tab is that it does not include timing information, so you should be familiar with the song that you intend to play. This diagram is a blank slate for writing tab. As in chord diagrams, the horizontal lines represent the strings of the guitar. The first or thinnest string is at the top of the diagram, and the sixth or thickest string is at the bottom of the diagram. To the left of the diagram are the notes associated with open strings. These are the notes that are sounded when a string is played without being fretted. No frets are shown on the diagram. Instead, numbers are placed on lines to indicate at which fret the string should be played. The number 0 means that a string is played open. Strings without numbers are not played. Finger numbers are not shown on the diagram, so this is where the player has to use best judgment to choose the proper finger. What follows next are a number of examples to help you understand the tab language. First, let's explore what tab looks like for open string passages. In this example, the first string is played open, so a 0 is placed on the first string in the diagram. This is what it looks and sounds like when played. Next, the first string is played open again, but now it's picked 3 times. Diagram indicates this by showing a 0 3 times on the first string. Here's what it looks like and sounds like when played. In this example, the third, second, and first strings are played open in sequence. The diagram indicates this with zeros placed on each string. The diagram is read from left to right so that the first string to be played is the third string since it is farthest to the left on the diagram. Notice that the string numbers are separated and not stacked on top of each other. Here's what it looks like and sounds like when played. Now we'll take the same sequence as before and play it backwards. Notice that the leftmost 0 is on the first string, so this string is played first, like this. Remember that lines represent strings and that numbers indicate at which fret a string is to be played. Now let's look at tab diagrams that require fretting strings. This diagram instructs us to pick the third string at the second fret 1 time by placing a single 2 on the third string. This diagram instructs us to pick the third string at the second fret, but now it will be picked 4 times as indicated by 4 2s placed on the third string. Again, note that numbers are spaced, which means to play the notes in sequence like this. This diagram tells us to do a walk up the fretboard on the first string from fret 1 to fret 3. This is indicated on the diagram by the numbers 1, 2, and 3 placed along the first string. Remember, leftmost number is the first to be played, and it's done like this. In this example, the previous walk will be reversed so that the walk will start at the third fret and go back to the first fret. Note that the leftmost number is 3, so this is where the sequence starts, like this. Now we're going to explore a tab diagram that includes 2 strings that will be played individually at different fret positions. The second string is played 2 times at the third fret, then the first string is played 3 times at the 5th fret. Here's what it looks and sounds like. This time we're going to use our walking skills to walk up the fretboard on 2 different strings. This diagram tells us to walk the 4th string from the 3rd to the 5th fret first, Then walk the third string from the 3rd to the 5th fret. Here's how it's played. When strings are to be played together at the same time, they are stacked on top of each other on the tab diagram. Since chords are made up of strings that are normally played together with a strumming action, they are shown as numbers stacked on top of each other. This means that notes should be played together as one unit. Remember that only strings with numbers are played, so any string without a number is not played. Here are some examples of playing more than one string at the same time. This diagram instructs us to play the first string and second string together at the 3rd fret one time by stacking 2 3s on top of each other on the 1st and 2nd string. Here's what it looks and sounds like. This diagram instructs us to play the 1st and 2nd strings again at the 3rd fret, but now pick them 3 times. This is indicated by stacking 3 pairs of 3s on the 1st and 2nd string. It's played like this. Now we are going to combine some of our skills to walk 2 strings together up the fretboard. Here the 1st and 2nd strings are played together at the 2nd fret, then walked up together to the 4th fret like this. In this example, the 2nd and 3rd strings are played together but on different frets. This is indicated by placing a 3 and a 4 on the 2nd and 3rd strings. Notice again that numbers are stacked, which means that the strings should be played together. This will require using 2 different fingers on the fretting hand at the same time, like this. Here's another 2-string walk up the neck, but this time the strings are fretted together but on different frets. This tab instructs us to walk the 2nd and 3rd strings up the neck together, starting at the 3rd fret and ending at the 5th fret. Here's what it looks like when played. The next 3 examples are for open chords. In this case, several numbers are stacked on top of each other, indicating that they are to be played together as a unit. Only strings with numbers are played. Open strings to be played are indicated by a 0. Here is tab for the open chord E major strummed 1 time. This is indicated by a single stack of numbers on the indicated strings, and it looks and sounds like this when played. Here is tab for the open chord D major strummed 3 times. The diagram shows 3 stacks of numbers in sequence. Note that only strings 1, 2, 3, and 4 are played. Strings 5 and 6 are not included. This is how it's played. In this final example, 2 different chords will be played. The tab tells us to strum a G major 2 times and a C major 1 time. The diagram shows the same stack of numbers twice, then a different stack of numbers once. The first stack represents G major, and the second stack represents C major. When played, it looks and sounds like this. That's all for part 1 of reading guitar tablature. The next video will cover special movements like slides, bends, and pull-offs. So study your tab, and I'll see you next time at Merle's Guitar World.